What's up everyone, Andrew Baena here, and on today's video I'm going to be showing you what I think is the most ideal way to use your amp modeler for live shows. So I play in a deathcore band called Carcosa. If you're familiar with us, that's awesome, but we've toured all over the world a few times now, 4 times. We have our 5th coming up in October. So after going on tour a few times, I've kind of landed on what I think is the best hybrid setup for most live show situations, because when you get to a venue, you kind of never know what you're going to get. So in this video, I am going to be focusing on 3 different pieces of gear, guitar not included. I am going to be using a Quad Cortex from Neural DSP as my amp modeler. This is what I've used for every show I've ever done with Carcosa. Next up, we are going to be using a power amp. This one right here is the PowerStage 700 from Seymour Duncan. Seymour Duncan is also sponsoring this video, by the way, so massive shout out to them for always supporting my channel. I've been using a PowerStage for a very, very long time though, much longer than I've been touring. Even with my old band, I used to use one. And if you don't know what a power amp is, essentially this is going to convert the signal from your amp modeler into a signal that is usable by a guitar cabinet. As you may or may not know, you cannot plug a modeler directly into a cab because it's not going to work. Cabs are not powered speakers, so it's not going to do anything. You need a power amp to get that power to the cabinet so that you can actually use your modeler's tone live. And that's kind of the main focus of this video, is how to set this up and why I think a hybrid solution of a direct out and a power amp is a great combo. And then last but not least, of course, we also need a guitar cabinet. So before we get on to setting up these 3 pieces of gear to work together, I just wanted to talk a little bit about why I think this is the best of both worlds, so to speak. So I've done a couple of tours without a power amp where we only go direct out or front of house. If you're not sure what that means basically when you play live, the sound guy is taking the signal from your amp modeler and sending it direct to the PA system in the venue, which most of the time that is how I prefer it, and that is what we do every night. However, with that being said, we have definitely played our fair share of some venues that have very, very small PA systems, sometimes borderline non-existent PA systems, so you never know what you're gonna get, and I feel like having a power amp with a guitar cabinet on the stage is nice, and then you can kind of have both the guitar cab sound as well as the front of house sound at the same time. It's definitely saved my ass in a bunch of situations on tour where we've again come to a venue and realized like, oh, so this is the stage. Okay, so now that you have kind of more of an understanding of what pieces of gear are involved in this process and why I'm using them, let's talk about how to set it up. Nice and simple, let's go. Okay, so when we're setting up the gear, again, this is going to be a little bit specific to the Quad Cortex, but I'm still gonna try to give you as many tips as possible to make this simple for any modeler. So on the Quad Cortex, like I said, this is where all of my tone processing is happening. I'm gonna start with the cables first and then explain the layout on the screen because the two go hand in hand. So first off, with the cables, very simple. My guitar is going in here, which is the input 1 on the Quad Cortex, and then I have 2 outputs happening right here. So this is the XLR going out of output 1, and this is what you would be giving to your sound guy. So this is the direct out of the Quad Cortex. This is nothing to do with the power amp, nothing to do with the cabinet. Give this to your sound guy. It will make his life much easier, then he doesn't have to mic a cab. Next up, we have this output here, which you can see with the green cable, and this one is going to the front of the power amp over here. So out of the Quad Cortex into the front of the power amp, and then the power amp has an output on the back which goes into the guitar cabinet right there. So this is the simplest possible way to do this. This is with a mono signal. You can get way crazier with this and have like 2 outputs going into 2 different cabs and all that, but for the purpose of this video, I think this is more than enough and also quite simple to set up. So in addition to having these cables sorted out in this way, you also have to do a couple of small adjustments on your modeler. Again, this is going to be different depending what you have, whether it's a Kemper or an Axe-Fx or a Quad Cortex, but in my case, I'm using a Quad Cortex, so we're going to talk about that. So since we are giving the sound guy his own output, everything that's happening on the Quad Cortex, I want to go to this cable. So in my case, you can see this entire top row for my tone is going to output 1. So again, that is right here, going to sound guy, don't need to worry about anything else. Now you can see that I have this dividing line down here, which actually splits the signal to go to output 3, which is this green cable, which is going to my guitar cabinet. Now the only difference between output 1 and output 3 is that on output 3, there is no impulse response or digital version of a cab being sent out. The reason you want to make sure that is happening is so that you're not sending a cab into a power amp into a cab. That would sound really weird because you're essentially double cabbing, which like does not sound good. So again, if you're doing this method, ensure that the signal that is being sent to your power amp does not have an impulse response or a digital cab. And that's pretty much it. It's very simple. So what I do is I split the signal so that all of my tone stuff is happening and then before the cab, it goes to the power amp. And then for the front of house guy, it just continues on, and then it gets added to a cab and an EQ, and that goes out. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, this is specific to the Quad Cortex, but if you want to set that up, you just tap and hold on the screen, and then it's going to bring up this splitter menu here, and you can actually just drag that splitter to wherever you need it to be in your chain. So again, for me, I want it after all the effects, but before the cabinet right there. Something else I thought I would mention, in case you don't have the option to do this split signal path and you only have one output on your modeler, aka if you bypass the cab, you just have no other option. The Seymour Duncan PowerStage also has an XLR output, which has a simulated analog cabinet that you can give the sound guy. I would use this as a backup option if you can't do this type of routing. If you have a much smaller or simpler modeler, for example, it might only let you bypass the impulse response and have no other output. So if that's the case, or you're using something like an analog preamp that doesn't have a built-in cab sim, the PowerStage totally has you covered with that analog cab sim output. One other thing I wanted to mention is that there is an indicator on the front of the PowerStage, which obviously flashes red if you're clipping. So if you're noticing that that's happening, what you're going to want to do is turn down the output of your Quad Cortex or whatever modeler you're using, because you definitely don't want to be clipping the PowerStage. Okay, so now that we have all of our gear set up over here, last thing to do is to show you how it sounds. So I have mic'd up my guitar cabinet with a very simple SM58, which you can kind of see at the bottom of the screen here. Again, if I was playing live, I would not actually mic up the cab. This is just so that you can hear what I'm talking about. So again, we have a direct out from the Quad Cortex going straight into my interface, and then the sound of the guitar cabinet also going into my interface, so that I can show you what both of them sound like back to back and show you that they're both working. In case you were curious, I'm using an Aristides 080R with a Seymour Duncan Pegasus pickup in the bridge right there. I'm tuned to drop E, and let's hear how it sounds. So there you have it, a very nice and simple hybrid setup where you can have the best of both worlds. You have digital output going right to front of house, and you also get that on-stage cab feel for that front row of audience, or for yourself if you're not monitoring with in-ears or something like that. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. Once again, a massive thank you to Seymour Duncan for sponsoring this video. If you are interested in picking up a PowerStage, they have a bunch of different options, a 200 watt one, a 700 watt one, all that good stuff is gonna be linked in the description and the pinned comment below. Also, if you wanna hear my guitar tone live and see my band live, Carcosa is going on tour again this coming October with Signs of the Swarm headlining. It's going to be an awesome time. The tour dates are on the screen right now. And last but not least, a massive thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. For most of my videos, if you want audio downloads, stems, or a shout out on the screen like these lovely people here, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page, which is also linked in the description below. That's all I have to say. I'll see you next time.